Hi everyone, welcome to the 35th episode of the Zicast. As always, I'm your host Ryan Zyaks, and today I'm joined by nurse Kayla Tinoco. Say hi.
Hi.
And I'd like to shout out Liam Chen for stepping in the TD once again. To start this off, how about you tell us a bit about yourself?
So I'm Kayla. I'm a junior here. I'm a nursing student, but I also do other extracurriculars on campus. I've been an orientation leader for the past 2 summers. I've been an ice cat, so the cheerleaders for the men's ice hockey team and now women's. I'm a peer catalyst. I was a peer fellow last semester for a chemistry course that nurses take, and a few other things, but it's just the basis of what I do and what I'm most involved with.
Awesome. And where are you from?
I'm from Queens, New York.
Awesome. That's another really interesting thing.
Yeah.
and I'm really excited to unpack all the things you do here on campus. So to start things off, Kayla, I'd like to ask you what being an orientation leader has meant to you in your experiences with it.
Yeah, so honestly, I would have never thought in a million years I'd do something like that. I think I'm fall more under like an introvert, and I think orientation leaders are seen as like peppy and school spirit, live, breathe, eat Quinnipiac. It wasn't until I went to the engagement fair and the girl tabling orientation asked me if I wanted to do it, and I'm like, I'm not sure. She said you get paid, and I saw the pay, and it looked really good, so I applied, and I went through the whole process. It was an application, a one-on-one interview, and a group process to see how you work with people in a group setting. Surprisingly, I got it, and I didn't know if I wanted to do it. The pay looked good, but I didn't know if I wanted to stay here for an entire month. I had to be here like all of June pretty much, and move back in a week in August. So I wasn't sure, and I was also experiencing some homesickness my freshman year, so I didn't know. But ultimately, I decided to do it, and I think it's been like one of the best decisions I could have made for myself. I gained a lot of confidence from the program. I know I went into it for the money, but I found it to be so like fulfilling, and I created such like special relationships with the first years that I had in my groups. A lot of them reached out to me, and it felt really good to hear that I made their experience so welcoming, and they tell me they were excited to start college because of me, and I really enjoyed that so much that I came back a second year. It taught me the power of being like a quiet leader. I think that being an orientation leader can be a turn off, and like a lot of people don't think it's cool. I get made fun of for it all the time, but I really did enjoy it, and I think it's given me the confidence as someone who's not so vocal or the loudest voice in a room that I can make an impact on others and be a leader. So
That's incredible, because I remember, I don't know if you remember, last year I was a incoming transfer student, and that's how we met.
Yes. Oh my God, I didn't even realize that.
That didn't register? Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's kind of how we met, and I knew who you were, and I asked you kind of this similar question when we first met, and you told me about how being an OL brought you out of your shell and how much it meant to you. So that's incredible to hear firsthand. And like, I also like to ask you, what kind of specific experiences have you had being an OL that kind of shaped you?
There's definitely a lot. I don't know. There were just like a lot of little moments that make one big moment. For example, like one thing I can think of in particular, there was a girl, and she was very timid and shy, and you could tell right off the bat from when I first met her. And she just looked like she was about to start crying in the middle of a presentation. And I remember pulling her to the side and asking her what's wrong. And she's like, I'm so nervous. Like, I don't know if this is what I want. I don't even know if I want to go to Quinnipiac. And I just reassured her, and I told her, I had second guesses as well. I didn't know if I wanted to go to Quinnipiac, and I don't know if like my orientation experience like really solidified that for me, but it does work out. Just giving her that reassurance that everything was going to be okay, and that I was there for her if she ever needed it during the school year. And she ended up reaching out to me in August when she had moved back in, and she was like, thank you so much for everything. Like, you really calmed me down in that moment, and like, I'm having so much fun already. I love my roommates. I love the friends that I've made. Like, thank you for everything. And like, it's just moments like those that are so touching that I have really enjoyed.
Yeah, that's very powerful, and that's kind of what you live for,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of help people in such a profound way. I remember I had another OL, Paige Vizella, on here as well,
Yes.
and she was sharing similar things and how difficult it could be to live in a new place. Like you said, you mentioned being homesick coming from New York. Like, how was that adjustment coming to Quinnipiac after like living in the city?
It was a huge adjustment. I was sure from the start that I wanted to go away for college. I just wanted a new experience. And I also knew that I wanted to live in New York for probably the rest of my life. So I wanted something different, at least for college. So I was looking at schools out of state, and obviously ended up at Quinnipiac. And I didn't ever think that I would have such a hard time adapting. I was so used to seeing, like, I live in an apartment building, and that's what I lived around my whole life. I was able to walk to, like, a supermarket or whatever, and I couldn't do that here. And I remember maybe, like, the first couple of weeks, like, kind of freaking out that I couldn't just walk to the store. I needed a car. And just, like, waking up and seeing a mountain, like, right in front of me, like, it's so weird. And it's still kind of weird to me. I had a hard time adjusting going even back home, and then going from home back to Quinnipiac. But I do love sort of the peacefulness of nature now. I appreciate it a lot more. I think I definitely prefer the city, and I will still probably go back there after college, but I definitely had a lot of questions from first years asking me how that adjustment was, because I did have people coming from sort of the 5 boroughs, and I told them, like, it is a hard adjustment, but you do get used to it. And honestly, I loved that vibe for college specifically. I liked the silence and the peacefulness, and, like, it does help me a lot with my studies.
Yeah, it's an interesting, like, frame of mind when you're home versus when you're here.
Yeah.
Because I'm from North Haven, Connecticut, so, like, right around the corner. I know you know Grace Maturo.
Yes.
She's also from there. And over the summer, I went to Los Angeles. So I did the QUNLA program, so I lived there for a couple months. So it's interesting, like, you went from a city to a small town. I went from a small town to the city, and you notice that with, like, taking public transportation everywhere, like buses and trains, and, like, just how, like, different that could be. Like you mentioned, like, using a car. Like, how does like, how would you say, like, living in Hamden compares to, like, New York? Like,
Yeah, it's funny because moving here, all my friends have cars and stuff, and I didn't have a car throughout all of high school. I depended on public transportation, and some of my friends drove, so I never really needed a car. And I also had a really hard time driving in Queens because the roads are so narrow, one-way streets. I mean, two-way streets look like one-way streets. It's so difficult. But I've driven in Connecticut, and it's just, like, completely different. So even that alone, like, nobody thinks about that, but it's, like, actually a really big adjustment. Like, little things like driving, getting place to place. It's just been, like, a big adjustment, but I've definitely adjusted now. I mean, 3 years later, but
yeah, very, very tame roads in Connecticut typically. Like, like California, it's all spread out. And I've been to New York, and it's condensed. Everything, a lot of things in New York are condensed.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, like, how is that living there, like, living in the city and kind of like getting around, things like that?
Yeah. I took pretty much the subway to school, like, every single day, the bus. And even when I worked at a summer camp over the summer, when I went back home, and, like, I pretty much did the same thing. And speaking to, like, my coworkers who have lived in Queens, like, most of them have not went to college out of state either. So sometimes I'll share my experiences, like, living here, and, like, they can't believe, like, some of the things that I'm saying. Like, we'll get bear notifications, and, like, we don't get that over there. Like, there's squirrels and, like, maybe a raccoon at night, but we don't get wildlife like that.
Yeah.
So it's strange. It's strange to hear. I cannot fathom having a bobcat in my backyard. I just think that's so weird sometimes. Even, like, lingo and the way New Yorkers speak compared to people in Connecticut. I've definitely picked up on New York accents a lot more now that I've left it. Very different dynamic.
Interesting. You don't get bears, but you might get Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Especially
for
being
sure.
from Queens. But yeah, like, the bear alerts are crazy.
Yes.
And of course, bobcats. You talk about bobcats, but you're an ice cat. So I'd like to ask you about your experience as an ice cat and what that's like. I couldn't resist that transition into this topic, so I had to take it.
Ice cats is kind of one of the reasons why I chose to come to Quinnipiac. I was between Penn State, actually, and Quinnipiac.
Wow.
Yes,
That's a crazy...
It's two completely vibes.
Yeah, two very different.
I toured both schools. I loved both nursing programs. That's what I was looking for. And I just couldn't decide. They're just so different, but I loved both. And I remember looking up both on TikTok, actually. I just wanted to see the vibes of the students, like what people are posting. And something I was looking for, too, was school spirit. Growing up in New York, we don't really have football teams. So that was something I looked for. I wanted a big football school. And
Penn State?
Yes, the tailgating, the whiteout.
I was going to say the whiteout night, yeah.
That was really intriguing to me. And I didn't really see that in Quinnipiac. It was actually like something I wasn't too fond about. But I didn't realize hockey was also a really big part of Quinnipiac culture. So yeah, looking through the TikToks, I came across these two girls from Quinnipiac, and they were wearing these really cool uniforms, and I've like never seen something like that before. Like cheerleaders wearing pants and like a 3/4 shirt. Like it was strange, but really cool at the same time. And I stalked the Ice Cats social media from there, and I fell in love with it. I thought it was so cool. And I've danced sporadically throughout my life, and I knew I wanted to get into extracurriculars coming into college. So I figured that was something I can do. And part of the reason why I wanted to come here, hockey's different. Like a lot of the schools that I looked at had big football. They were big football schools. Not a lot were big hockey schools, and I just thought that was something very niche about here. So I did end up committing here, obviously, and I was really upset when I found out I needed to know how to skate. I could not ice skate. So I was really bummed out about that. And again, I was at the engagement fair, and I didn't even want to look at the Ice Cats table because I was so upset I couldn't do it. And I just happened to walk by when the captain at the time was telling another girl, "Oh no, you don't have to know how to ice skate. If you look teachable, like we'll take you." So I put my name down on the email list, and I was really nervous to go to tryouts. I didn't think I was going to make it. I was pretty convinced about that, and I hate rejection. So if literally anything went wrong on that day, I would have not shown up. The weather was slightly off. If I wasn't feeling well, I was not going to show up. But I did, and I went to tryouts, and the whole time I'm already thinking of other things I can do. Like, this isn't the end-all, be-all. I did the dance portion, and it went better than I thought it was going to go. And then we had the ice part of the tryouts, and I was so nervous. And, I was like, damn, I might be a little upset if I don't make it. Didn't fall through some miracle, and I just tried my best to look like I can be teachable. And I made the team. And actually, the way they revealed it, they took us into groups. And I was in a group of 6 girls, and they took us all to the basketball court. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, they're not going to take a group of 6. I definitely am part of the group that's getting cut. And then another group had, come through the doors of the basketball court. And my coach was, leading it. And she's like, "I'll meet your teammates." And there were girls screaming and crying. And, I was just in shock that I was even in this position. But my life had completely changed from that point on. These girls have become my family, and I know that they always have my back. I've danced pretty sporadically throughout my life, but not consistently, and my dancing was definitely very, rusty. So that was, really hard to pick up on. We learned over 30 dances in less than a month. I had to learn how to ice skate from scratch. I didn't have good skating technique to begin with. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to go backwards. I didn't know how to do any tricks, and I had a month and basically 4 practices to get it done. So that was really stressful and hard, and there were definitely times where I'm like, I don't even know if I deserve to have this spot. But it all came together, and now I'm in my 3rd year of doing it.
So yeah, sometimes the best things in our lives were the scariest at first.
Yes.
And that speaks a lot, or says a lot, like overcoming those obstacles and just grinding it out. Like, that's an incredible story. That is like what sports can do for people. Just like that, the kind of like, should I be doing this? But it's something that drives you, that keeps you going forwards. And I'm wondering, like, what's the experience like just being there on like game days, being an Ice Cat?
Yes. The vibes are always up there. It's great. I love game day. Even like the whole getting ready part of it is like exciting. I get to get ready with my teammates and we make a whole like thing out of it. I get such an adrenaline rush, like getting on the ice. My heart is racing and the hockey players come out and they're skating in front of you so fast, like you feel like the wind blowing on you, and it's an insane like feeling. And I love being on the ice. As someone who's like not really an ice skater, I've learned to love the sport and appreciate it, actually. Like, now that I've been trying to learn skills, I can see like the more advanced skaters doing it. I'm like, I don't know how you do that. It's crazy. And even hockey. I wasn't much of a hockey fan before, and now I'm like really into it, and I keep up with college hockey, even NHL. So it's given me that. Now I have grown a love to perform. I love being on the platform and doing these dances. Last year, I was given the position with 3 other girls. We shared sort of like dance captain. So we were the 3 in the front, and the way Ice Cats works, when we dance, we just hear the song and we think of a dance that might go with it, and we all just follow along with the dance captains. So I was in charge of that, and it was definitely scary the first time doing it. Like, all these girls are like depending on me to pick a dance, and I need to do it the right way. But it all worked out, and I really do enjoy it, especially like when they win, like doing like our I don't know what to call it, like the dance that we do when they score.
Yeah, like a celebration.
Yes, I just get so much adrenaline from it, and it's just really a great experience. And I think the most fulfilling part of it, more than the dancing, the skating, and the girls that I've met from it, are kind of the little kids. I didn't realize how much of a celebrity I'd look to them, and I'm constantly getting asked for autographs, and like they want me to sign their jerseys, and it's so cool. And I've never thought that I'd become a role model from this, because a lot of people do like make fun of the Ice Cats, or they think like maybe cheerleaders don't belong in hockey. But it's moments like those where I see like these kids like idolizing me and what I do. It's just so rewarding. And one thing I'll never forget, we did an elementary school visit, and we were paired with 1 men's ice hockey player and 1 women's, and we went to a classroom and we just like interacted with the kids. And I went to a table to go talk to just like a group, I think they were 1st or 2nd graders, and they were just asking me questions. They were just so engaged. They loved my pom-poms, like the sparkles. And by the end of all of it, we did activities with them, and this little girl comes up to me and she's like, I want to be just like you when I grow up. And I still think about that and really like the impact that I've had on people, and I think it's just so incredible.
It's the greatest thing in the world.
Yes.
You never know who you'll inspire just by being yourself.
Yeah.
And doing the things you love, and that must just be euphoric.
Yes, absolutely.
Feel. And it's very interesting because I have a lot of like comedians on here that do like improv, and it's interesting you talking about being like the dance captain and just like thinking of a song on the spot. Like how is that?
It takes time. I had a full season with it, and I watched the people before me do that, and sometimes like even just on my own, like if they took too long to think, I'd like think of one in my head, and like I think I've had that practice for so long that when it came time for me to do it, I like finally was able to pick up on it. And honestly, we do these dances so much that it becomes muscle memory, and I can just like think of it in my head really quickly, like, okay, this one would probably go better with this tempo of music. It's definitely not something you can do like first couple of weeks of learning. It took me maybe a full year to like finally like get these dances down packed, but now it's like second nature, and it's a lot easier than it was in the beginning.
Yeah, it speaks to experience, because like confidence, experience, they go hand in hand. And that's interesting. It just like clicks in your head, instincts kick in, and you just do it.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And I was also wondering, were you there during the national championship?
Yes, I was.
Please explain that. That's insane.
Yeah. It was my first year too, being on the Ice Cats, and I just had this like incredible experience. Being at the Frozen Four, this is a memory I'll never forget. I remember going to Tampa, and we landed, and we were greeted by all these people. They're giving us like chains and fruits, and it was just like a whole thing. And I'll never forget the first day. It was Michigan versus Quinnipiac, and I wasn't even sure how far we were going to get into this, honestly. But we beat Michigan by a lot. But I was pretty convinced we weren't going to beat Minnesota, and I think a lot of people were convinced the same. We were kind of the underdogs going into it, and I kind of went in with low hopes, and I really didn't think we would get it. And we started off probably the first period pretty bad. Minnesota was beating us by a lot, and just like the energy in the room when they started to like get closer and tie the game was like insane. When they pulled out the goalie, I was like freaking out. I couldn't watch. I'm like, this is it. We lost. But it worked out, and like it was an incredible decision by Rand. And like going into the overtime, I'm like, all right, like this could go either way. I don't know. I couldn't watch. My heart was like in my throat. And I don't know. I think I looked away when I saw them going closer to the other net. I'm like, this isn't going in. Like, I don't know. And it went in. And one thing I'll never forget is looking at the Minnesota fans' faces, and just like their jaws were dropped. And I think they were all convinced that they had it, that they had this win. And it was great to be like the underdog in this story, and to get that, and like kind of like show other fans that we're not like just like, yes, we're a small college in the middle of nowhere, but we could do something pretty big like that. And the celebrations after, and like just the adrenaline of like when like I couldn't believe it, and it took me a long time to like let that process in. Just like such a memorable experience, and I wish I could do it all over again.
Yeah. And you never know. You never know. I'm sure that's a high that's like incredible. That just feels like it'll never come down.
Yeah,
like,
no.
Like can you take me through like that night, like after they won?
Yeah, no. They scored. I remember the girls were crying, and I just like nobody could believe that happened. And I remember like walking out, the Minnesota fans definitely looked very like
not the happiest.
No, they weren't. I felt bad a little bit, but they were so mean, especially to the Ice Cats. They were so mean to us, like leading into it. So it was kind of a taste of their own medicine. I think they had it coming. And walking out, like the fans were going crazy outside. It was nighttime. The weather was so nice. We went back to the hotel room, and like, I don't know, we were all just like hanging out, like the Ice Cats. We were all just hanging out, like sharing like our feelings during the moments, and kind of like what was going through our heads, and who thought they were going to have it and who thought they didn't have it. And I remember we were about to get on the plane, like going to like back to Hamden, and the hockey players were like also on their high. They're really nice to us, like asking us how our trip was, like what we thought of the experience. And it was really cool because we've never really interacted with the hockey team like that. I think we have a very professional relationship, but you know, we don't really have these conversations. So it was cool to be able to like have that sort of sharing of experiences with them. And Rand was also there, and he thanked us for being there and like being a support system for the hockey team. And it was definitely like very memorable.
Oh yeah, so that's interesting. There's like a separation between the players and the Ice Cats, so to speak. Yeah,
I would say we just have a very good working relationship with them, and obviously they're aware we're there. We're on the ice when they're coming out to do player intros, and as they're you know, playing hockey, we're cheering them on. They know of our presence, and we know their presence, but again, we just keep a professional working relationship. Unless we do, like, they've always been very friendly to us, always. The hockey team has always been completely like supportive and nice of us, especially Rand too. It was last year we went to Lake Placid, and they lost. It was really like heartbreaking, and we also had left really early that morning. I'm pretty sure I had to be at the rink by 7. And we were supposed to stay in a hotel that night and leave the next morning, but there was a snowstorm. So they said, well, we can't risk going in the morning, so we need to leave now. And this was at 12 o'clock in the morning. It's a 7-hour drive. And we also had Q-thon the next day, which we were supposed to be at. We had a miracle child. So we all knew we were going to be very exhausted. We tried to keep the positive energy. I could tell the boys were like a little upset. And we get back to the rink, and my coach was just like giving us a breakdown of like how we're getting to Q-thon. It's like 6 in the morning. We're all exhausted. And Rand came out, and he thanked us so much. He was like, I'm sorry we lost, but thank you so much for being there anyway. Like, you guys are great. And I appreciate that they like recognize what we do. And, you know, of course we recognize what they do, and we love to like share those experiences.
Yeah, great community.
Yeah.
Feel everyone being together, even in the wins and in the losses. And like, once you guys like touched down back at Quinnipiac, like how was that feeling when like everyone was just on cloud 9 because the hockey team had pulled it off?
It was just like, that was one of the best semesters. Like when I look back on it, especially since I had like, I remember that this was my freshman year. So my first semester freshman year, I was trying to adjust to everything, like very exhausted, overwhelming. But my second semester, I think that kind of played a role in like turning everything around. Like the vibes were so high, and every day just felt like a party because it was constantly talked about that like we had won, like this was the first time we won like a national championship like this. And it was just a very surreal experience, and just like the vibes in the air, like all the positivity, my teammates, like we just always talked about it. And my coach to this day will still talk about like what went on, what feelings she was like having in the moment. And it was just really cool.
Yeah, really put QU on the map.
Yes.
I know the basketball team's been awesome as well, but like getting to win that national championship, everyone's hearing of Quinnipiac. Like, what is this school from who knows where, Connecticut?
Yeah.
Like you said, underdog winning the national championship in hockey. That is incredible. And I can't even imagine, I wasn't even a Quinnipiac student at the time. I can't even imagine just being there during all that buzz.
Yes. No, I mean, we were also there as a team for the flag raising, with the national championship banner. There was a lot of like festivities that went on after, and it was just really cool. Like it was just so hard to believe even after, like it had not processed in my head that we were national champions. And we followed the hockey team throughout their entire season that year, and I've seen like all the hard work that they had put in, and I was just like proud for them. Like they put in so much effort, and like despite every like odd that was against them, they still did it. And like for that, I think it was like very incredible. Yeah,
and same on you and the Zicast front, all the work that you've put in, like that you mentioned, and like you being such an integral part of the team, like that's incredible to like be a part of just something so special.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did look back on that too. I went from like the beginning of the season, couldn't skate for the life of me. I was so frustrated learning these dances, to like being on national TV and like being able to do an ice performance in front of like this huge arena. That was the biggest arena I've ever done that on, and I was so nervous getting on that ice. Like I can't fall now, like I need to stick these tricks, and a lot of nerves in the air, but I did it. And I just remember like getting on the ice during the Minnesota game and thinking like, wow, I've worked an entire season for this, and like I've completed a whole Ice Cat season, like something I didn't even think I was gonna do, and I'm forever thankful for it.
Yeah, it's like a storybook.
Yeah,
it really is like a story. Like I'm thinking like it's like a movie. Like literally like starting off like, underdog in your own right, learning how to skate, all of this, joining the really cool Ice Cats, and then going on to win a national championship. It's like you can't even script that. No, you can't even make that up almost.
If you would have asked, like, if you would have told me that was going to happen, I would have never believed you in a million years. Like, it's just funny how probably, like, the most impactful experiences I've had, I've thought I'd never do or I'd never get to experience, and then I do. And it's like, in a sense, I'm, like, beating my own odds, and it's cool. I think the best experiences I've had here at Quinnipiac are the ones that have I found the most scary, or like things I was like nervous to do on my own. Even like nobody tried out for ice cats with me. Nobody did orientation with me. I went into that experience like completely blind and clueless, and they ended up being things that like have had the most impact on me.
Greatness in a way can always feel sort of lonely.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And that it's kind of striving to be the best version of yourself in any way that you can.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. And of course, your orientation leader, incredible. Ice cat, insane. And then now nurse.
Yes.
Even more insane. So like, take me into like the daily life of a med student, and how, considering all the things you do, like how do you learn to manage your time?
Yeah, it was definitely an adjustment coming in here. I didn't get to do many extracurriculars in high school because I was so focused on track, because I ran track and cross country in high school, and that pretty much took up my whole life. So I couldn't do any extra clubs or other sports as well. So I knew that coming into college, I wanted to diversify that. And I was afraid that I couldn't do that with my major, because nursing's hard. So I kind of weaned into it. My freshman year, I did a few things and like saw how I could manage that with like school. And truthfully, like freshman year as a nursing major is not too bad. You're just doing your prereqs, and everything's pretty spaced out, so you're not too overwhelmed. My sophomore year is when I started to struggle. I took anatomy for the first time, and that killed me. It killed me. I realized I just didn't know how to study. I didn't have the right methods or time management, because I would come back from ice cat practice at like 11 o'clock at night, sometimes later, and I'm like, I still have homework to do, I still have to study, and then I'm up till late and I gotta wake up early the next morning. So I knew I had to change something. So I had to pretty much like plan my day by the hour, which is not like me. I am such a go with the flow kind of person, and I like to live that way. But in order to keep up with like my extracurriculars and my academics, I needed to have a schedule. So, and sometimes I still struggle with that, but it did help me a lot, and I was able to pick up on different study habits and when to dedicate my time. I knew if I had practiced late, I needed to get my work done beforehand, and like even find little bits of time to just like do my work. But I think what's equally as important is finding time for yourself and self-care, and that was something I learned maybe halfway through that year. I was getting so burnt out, and I think that the problem was I just didn't find time for myself. So especially now that I'm getting into more of like the rigorous work of nursing school, I make sure I have like an hour or two just for myself to do what I want. If I want to go to the gym, which I think is a great way, I think it's very therapeutic and like helps me get my mind off of things. I love to run, so I'll go on the treadmill for like an hour. If I want to take a nap or like just like scroll through Instagram, like stuff like that, like just helps me like relax a little bit and like kind of get away from schoolwork, hang out with my friends if I need. And I think that's made like a major difference on sort of like my mental well-being with all of that, because sometimes it can get very overwhelming. But now I know like, okay, I have class in the morning, I'll take a few hours after class to do my schoolwork, I'll take a nap for an hour, and then I'll have practice later, and then I'll like do like maybe an hour of studying after practice and go to bed. And I think that's helped me the most.
Great adulting skills. Like, yeah, I always say like, when you truly love something, you make it work, and that's really telling that you're able to like block out your day so well. Like I experienced this in my own, because I have a ton of stuff going on too, and it's always hard to like section out what to do when. So that's great that you kind of lined it all up in your schedule, because I know how hard nursing is. Like, can you take me into like things like clinicals and like how you kind of how you go about that?
Yes, so this is my first semester doing clinicals. We start at like 7 in the morning, which is rough because I'm not a morning person, but I start super early. And I had my orientation last week, and we didn't do much, but I was really nervous because I'm so afraid of like messing up, and you cannot mess up in a profession like that because you're putting a patient's life at risk. So that was nerve-wracking, But yesterday I had like my first real full day, and I had a patient and a partner, and my clinical instructor was super supportive, and like I was just so nervous that I wasn't gonna have that support, but she was there the whole time. Like anytime I did something, like she was there supervising and like telling me maybe like what I could improve on or like what I'm doing well. So that was super helpful. And I also like have a hard time going to bed early, and my mind is just so active at night. Like I am a night studier full through and through. So I've kind of had to adjust to that, and I'm like, all right, I can't go to bed at 1 a.m. and wake up at 5 and like expect to function off coffee. So I've really had to adjust a lot in my life to do that. But like you've said, if you love something, you make it work. So in order to do all the things that I love, I like need to like have some self-discipline, which I do still struggle with. And there are days where my day is not completely planned out, and like I'm just finding little bits of time to like do whatever. But for the most part, like I know what works for me is just finding time in my schedule, writing it down, and going from there.
That's fascinating, because I struggle to sleep as well, because my mind's always racing, that I have trouble like calming down. Like how did you adjust, like how did you kind of adjust that?
Yeah. So I stopped doing work in my room. I'm trying to associate my room with like peace and sleeping. So, for example, last night I got back from practice. I got back around maybe 11, took a shower, and I like will lay down in bed. I know you're not supposed to do this, like be on your phone before bed, but it helps me a little bit. So I'll go on my phone for maybe 10 minutes, and then I'll like plug in my headphones and like listen to music until I start to feel sleepy. That usually helps me a lot, like listening to music before I go to bed. Something calming, obviously. And even white noise or something, like that's something I've really started to pick up on lately. And I'll put my phone down, and I have to put my alarm halfway across my room or I'm not going to wake up. And then usually it helps me get up in the morning. So that's just a strategy I've been using.
Yeah, it's funny because I legitimately had this conversation with my coworker like 3 hours ago, and he told me to like meditate. I don't know if that's something that would help you, but I'm definitely weighing this, because how you're able to juggle all of this is just so impressive, and definitely like a great blueprint. And of course, everything you've done in nursing led you to getting your white coat. So I'd like to ask you how rewarding it was to get your white coat and what your aspirations are as a nurse.
So getting a white coat is supposed to represent like the beginning of your clinical career. And yeah, it was really rewarding. I didn't think I'd like get to that point. I struggled a lot in anatomy, like I said before, and I was very close to the brink of failing out of it, and I was freaking out because that's just not the kind of student I am. I've always been like super on top of my academics, and it's not that I wasn't. I was just like really struggling in the class and trying to find like how to study for it, essentially. So just like I just thought about like the late nights I had with my friends studying, and really doubting myself sometimes, and like thinking I couldn't do it. Maybe I should change my major or do something easier, because maybe this isn't for me. But it's important to remember your why sometimes, and I think about why I wanted to be a nurse and like what impact I want to do with the career that I'm working for, and it's really made it all worth it. And like all that combined has like really helped me get there, and like being up there, like getting my white coat is like, that's like exactly what I thought about, just like my why and what has led me to that point.
It's like you won your own national championship.
Yes.
so to speak. Like how is that feeling compared to that national championship night, like receiving your coat versus that?
Yeah, no, very rewarding. My parents were there, and like I could just like, I know I was making them proud, and nobody in my family's a nurse, so I would be the first nurse in my family, and it was just really cool. And like standing in front of all my classmates, and I was also really proud of them too. I know people who did fail out of anatomy and like had to retake it, and I know that they doubted themselves too, and like now I get to see them get their white coat, and that was really cool. And I was like just really proud of their accomplishments as well, because they were it was just as much their moment as it was mine.
team effort.
Yes.
Just like in hockey.
Yes.
With ice skates. Like, yeah, I know. Grace Montrose, she also received hers too. Like,
yeah.
So how was that? Just like with all the people that you've kind of like you were talking about studying with, kind of went through this with. Like, how is that like celebrating it with them and being in that moment with them?
Yeah, it's fun. Like Grace Mature and I are like really good friends. We did orientation together too. We were roommates over the summer. So we've shared our like nursing struggles, and you know, I know what it's taken for her to get to that point, and it's really cool to like get to go through that with her. And we've also during orientation, like we work the nursing sort of like scheduling for freshmen, and a common question they'll ask is like, oh, how's clinicals? Like, how's like the nursing curriculum? And I'm like, oh, I'm not there yet. And like we would both have to answer like that because we never were. We were like still in our prerequisites. And now looking back on it, I'm like, now I can answer those questions. And it's cool to see our journey from like that point to now.
A national champion nurse.
Yes.
You might as well be a superhero. We're talking about being from a movie script. But kind of moving into this, I'd like to ask you, like, what are some things that people may not know about you?
A fun fact I share a lot. I had heart surgery, actually, my sophomore year, going to my junior year of high school. And it wasn't anything invasive, honestly, like, really chill for a heart surgery. Like
chill heart surgery.
Yeah, like, I swear it was. But it kind of played a role in like me deciding to be a nurse because prior to that I wanted to be a vet. I wanted to take care of animals. I still love animals. I'm such an animal lover. But the nurse who took care of me post-op was kind of really made a big impact on me. And she didn't do much. Like, she gave me my food tray, she helped me walk around after. Like, she really didn't do much, but it's more like the feeling I got from her, and everything was so genuine, and I really wanted to do that. And truthfully, I looked down on nurses my whole life, and I think that's because I had a lack of knowledge. And all I really like, I was in and out of the hospital, like all I knew of nurses was like going to the pediatrician, and they always looked miserable, and I'm like, this, like, why would I want to do that? And my uncle's a doctor, so I thought that was more of like the path that I wanted to take. But I really love that nursing's very like patient-centered, and like when I got surgery, my surgeon came in the room for 3 seconds and left. My nurse was there the whole time after, and I like would really love to make that impact on people. And you hear so many inspiring stories from nurses, and I would love to like be a part of that.
So she inspired you like how you inspired the little girl you talked about.
Yes.
There's a through line there.
Yes.
There. And that's incredible. It's interesting what can be formative for us, like having that surgery, seeing what nurses do, and that inspiring you, and then you bringing that kind of inspiration into other facets of your life and bringing it to other people. That's incredible. I don't know if anyone can beat that fun fact. That's one that's hard to beat. So I'd also like to ask you, what are some of your hopes and dreams professionally or in general?
Professionally, I don't know yet. I haven't really decided what kind of nurse I want to be. I think I need to experience like my more clinicals to know what I want to do. For right now, I think I'd like to work with kids, do something in pediatrics, or even labor and delivery, or the NICU, like newborn babies. I've thought about going to grad school to be a nurse practitioner. I'm not too sure yet, but I'd like to stay in New York after school. So my dream job would probably be working for NYU. My dad works there. He's a radiographer, so he take x-rays and stuff, and I think it'd be like, I really like his job. Like, I don't know, I'd like to work there too, and I've been in the environment, and it's like super welcoming and nice, and I would also like to work there as well. Or even Cohen's is where I had my surgery, and it was like, the hospital's so nice. I loved it. So if I could work there too, I'd love that. And yeah, just get my degree eventually.
Yeah. I mean, that would be incredible to work with your dad. Family affair there.
Yeah.
That would be so cool. But what about like personally, any other like personal dreams you have?
I've thought about it. Honestly, not that like I can think of. I'm like really happy with where I am right now, and what comes in the future like will come to me. And like I've realized a lot, like the things that I've ended up wanting to pursue are like things that I like. I don't know if this will make sense, but like I find out about it in the moment. Like
I very much
things
agree.
just like come to me, and from there I think I'll like find things that I'm passionate about, and I am passionate about a lot. Like working with kids. I love working with kids, and that's something I'd like to do in the future. I worked as a camp counselor this summer, and I actually didn't have experience prior, so it was scary. I'm so used to working with like freshmen, like college freshmen, and then working with like 8-year-olds is like a completely different ballpark. And like, but I've learned so much from it, and I like didn't really know I wanted to work with kids until then. So I think like it's just like little experiences I get in my life I like end up wanting to sort of like follow and have goals for.
Yeah. Kids are people too. And it's great. You get to learn. I'm sure you learn a lot working with kids. And I think it's interesting you talked about, I know you said you're a go with the flow person, but now you've become a planner. It's great. I think you're finding like a balance there.
Yeah.
Would you say that's I think definitely something to bring into life, because I feel like some of the best things in life come when you're not expecting it, but also at the same time you need to plan. So like I think that's a great mesh to have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I like that's been pretty much my whole life. I swear things just come to me, and I like ice cats.
Yeah.
I didn't know it existed before. Like that was never like a goal I had since I was a kid, and I just discovered it one day and I fell in love with it, and I feel like that's how most things will come up in my life. And you're right, like things just come when you least expect it, and I think the most precious things in life are things that you don't expect.
I very much agree, and I like to believe that the best things in our lives hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
And even for you, you're a national champion, right? Even for you, but of course your life's a movie. But I'd like to ask you some of your favorite movies.
I'm actually really not a movie buff, I'll be honest, but I will say I hate horror movies. I hate horror movies. I can't stand it. But I love psychological thrillers. Like I'll sit and watch that. For the most part, I don't watch movies, and truthfully, I don't have time.
I don't blame you. No, overall, Kayla, I just wanted to thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
This is so interesting to hear about. Is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up here, like a closing thought?
No, I guess I'd just say, like, I think, like, a big takeaway from this thing, the best things in life come when you least expect it. And I think I would say that I've really evolved being here as a role model and having, like, leadership. And I've gained a lot of confidence from my experiences here, and I'm, like, really grateful for it. So
that's incredible. And I had so much fun learning about you. You have a great presence on here. I always notice that. I don't know if radio or podcasting would ever be in your future, but you have a great presence. You're very inspiring. I couldn't be more impressed with what you've been able to do, and with the drive you have, with the passion you have. I really think you can accomplish literally anything you want in this world.
Thank you so much.
So I can't wait to see what you do, and it was an incredible honor to have you on here.
Thank you so much.
Of course. And as always, this is Ryan Zicast with the Zicast, where everyone has a story, signing off. Thank you so much for watching.